que mucha controversia ha generado Assassin's Creed. Yo jamás pensé que Ubisoft fuera a terminar destruyendo Assassin's Creed de tal manera. El juego no se ve mal, ese no es el problema. Y el problema no es que se llama Assassin's Creed. Vamos a ver esto, vamos a ver cuánto le dieron de review. La real es que yo tengo problemas con Ubisoft y la forma de marketing de ellos hace tiempo. La real, porque es increíble ver juegos como Baldur's Gate, Elden Ring, Ghost of Tsushima y otro single player juego, RPG, que simple y sencillamente tú estás pagando $70 y está todo en el in-game. Todas las armaduras, todos los sets, todas las misiones. Incluso en la real, si van a hacer otra cosa, hacen un DLC que, by the way, Elden Ring hizo un DLC que es un juego casi gana Game of the Year. Entró a la categoría que no tenía que entrar. Y yo no veo que tiene microtransacciones ni nada. Pero nada. Mientras la gente siga apoyando esta clase de marketing, igual que el de Call of Duty, hay juegos que no van a progresar, que van a seguir siendo la misma mierda. Pero vamos a ver esto. Vamos a ver esto. Que el juego se ve lindo. Pero, ¿de qué sirve un juego lindo que te venden 70 pesos, que esté incompleto también?
Assassin's Creed Shadows makes the most of that theme, with a great pair of shinobi and samurai heroes sharing center stage that are fun to skulk through giant castles or wade into vicious battles with. Besides the setting, the bulk of the changes this time around focus on making smaller tweaks to well-established systems, such as less cluttered maps and skill trees, while also doubling down on things that really worked in 2023's Assassin's Creed Mirage, like the more focused combat that accompanies its better-paced main quests.
Mirage fue este juego que salió y yo creo que
as imbalances and missed
ni gameplay vi por ahí,
abound, but I feel more confident than ever that Assassin's Creed could be back and here to stay.
And once this is done, I will never take up the sword again. Let us get this over with.
Like a river in the rainy season, Shadow's story overflows with cliches and tropes. But morally complex intersecting plots still keep the intrigue high, which is the same trick.
No deberíamos ni hablar de la historia de este juego, porque hay un corillo de gente bien brutal ofendido con esta historia.
That made Assassin's Creed Valhalla's stories work when they did. I don't think I was particularly wowed by any of the writing on a regular basis, but there are some standout moments of tense reflection and curious happenings sprinkled throughout.
Who is behind these murders?
I don't know.
The typical Assassin's Creed conspiracy woven into it fits perfectly within the war-torn Sengoku period of Japan too, like a hidden blade snugly in its wrist sheath. It's still a bit too full of go here, do that quests as bridges between major moments, but Shadows is organized in a way that can be enjoyed in pieces and at your leisure without getting too lost between plot points. Almost like how one might enjoy a good book. The leads themselves are wonderful. You spend a lot of the early game with the sharp
Vuelvo y digo, el problema no es que el juego no se vea
witted
bien.
and brooding
No se ve
Malak,
bien.
who is among the last shinobi warriors of the Iga clan, a role thrust upon her by tragedy. That tragedy befell her in part by the hands of the charismatic Hulk Yasuke, who is a tireless warrior for justice and peace. When they begin working together, they are frequently each other's most reliable counsel, with different perspectives on the events going on around them.
Perhaps in that chance lies the seed of redemption for each of us.
Yo creo que está siendo uno de los personajes más controversiales en cualquier Assassin's Creed.
And while I don't think either one would
Yo creo que va a quedar marcado por la historia. Yasuke.
Popularity contest against
el negro que nadie quiso en Assassin's Creed. El negro que nadie pudo aceptar.
Do you want to become a software engineer? Well, if you don't know where to
Mira que yo
start,
soy
I'm
negro.
Jacob. I'm a professional software
No
engineer
tiene que ver
based
con
here in
eso.
New York City. And
Vamos a ver.
Most of the missions in Shadow starts on the refreshingly intuitive objective board. Thematically, This approach matches the tone of using all of the information you gather to identify hidden members of a secret society trying to plunge Japan into chaos. Functionally, the way it organizes outstanding tasks and the people involved is far more useful than the old bulleted quest lists. Selecting a quest gave me a short list of clues to help discern where the objective was. Past Assassin's Creed games have tried versions of this before, but this one is the first one that I felt consistently made me look at my map and actually deduce where the spot in question might be. Rather than lighting up your map with a galaxy of tooltips, Shadows mostly relies on sparse points of interest icons to push you towards the areas you'll need to see in person.
La realidad es que yo llego a un mapa y lo que hago es quiero explorarlo 100%, quiero completar todos los subquests y después sigo para el otro. No sé si yo por lo menos cuando jugué Ghost of Tsushima no fue que yo pasé a la segunda isla y no, cuando yo llegué a la segunda, después viro a la primera a hacer todo. ¡Tú eres loco! Había que hacerlo todo en la primera y después pasamos a la segunda lo más OP posible.
These things that tell you that there's something out there, but you're gonna have to go check them out for yourself to know what. I love this. I could feel my brain starting to detangle the checklist conditioning that years of these games have instilled in me. Most of these undiscovered locations fall into a number of reliable categories, like castles you can infiltrate and attempt to steal special gear from, or any of the many villages scattered across Japan. But you can't be sure unless you take them in for yourself.
Love minigames.
A common thing I would always stop to handle whenever I came across them were world activities. These are smaller locations and events that, when completed, add knowledge points to your characters, adding new options to their skill trees. Not all these events are exciting, but they often don't take too long and the points are worth it in the end. And some can add an interesting distraction from the action for a short spell.
Yo que soy malo. Tacho. Yo voy a estar, yo como
between outings, I spent some time
try
at
número
the
15.
After collecting minerals, crops, and wood out in the world, you can use those resources to build and upgrade important buildings here that give you access to new assets. I spent the majority of my time at the forge managing my equipment, while other important buildings provide features that can be managed in places outside of the hideout, like the new summoning ability from the dojo, which let me call in help from certain allies I met during my adventure.
Yo creo que ese personaje también fue otro personaje controversial. Si no me equivoco, ese Summon, que es una mujer.
On this place very much, as I personally can't be bothered to decorate a homestead. But those who can won't be disappointed by the amount of cosmetics available to find and buy.
Ay, Dios mío, qué cosa más linda.
This version of 1500s Japan is a beautiful place. There's such a symphony of color over every hill and across every lake. Each season brings with it incredible landscapes, sometimes covered in the copper brown of autumn or entombed in deep white snow. I found the weather to be some of the best I'd ever experienced in an open world. It was hard not to be moved watching powerful winds pick up and bring in rolling thunderstorms,
en el juego es
especially when nature reacted to it all
dinámico.
in real time, as flocks of birds take flight and ground critters scurry to find safety.
And not for nothing,
armor.
but in my dozens of hours in Shadows, I encountered remarkably few bugs for a game this size.
No voy a decir
The 40-hour
nada.
main story revolves around unmasking and eliminating.
This AI tool will take your idea and create.
Ya, soy yo. YouTube últimamente tiene más. Wow.
Members of a deadly organization called
Más anuncios de lo normal.
Once you've chosen a target, their multi-mission arcs give you regular opportunities to handle the situation with either Yasuke's might or Naoe's stealth. While there are certainly scenarios where one is more useful than the other, in general, there are remarkably few quests where Naoe isn't better suited for the task at hand.
I'm not allowed here. I should be quiet.
If the Assassin's Creed playstyle is a combination of concepts like exploration,
no está tan malo como
stealth, and combat, Naoe can do all of these competently, excelling at parkour and stealth in particular, while Yasuke can't climb very well or sneak around much due to his size and general lack of grace.
I meant to do that.
He is a devastating.
No te digo. Ese personaje va a ser uno de los más criticados, yo creo que a través de toda la historia y la saga de Assassin's Creed. Yo creo que incluso ya ahora que Ubisoft pase la batuta a Assassin's Creed, alguien más debería ya, yo creo que intentarlo.
Force in combat, but now it can simply sneak around most situations that Yasuke would cut his way through, solving them with so much less trouble. As much as I like Yasuke, he's far more limited and one-dimensional, with large parts of this game not quite designed to take advantage of his strengths. It's particularly disappointing because Shadows does find ways to tailor missions around both of their skills on occasion, usually in bigger, more pivotal, and more important battles where both heroes need to operate together to succeed. These special missions are separated into sections that allow you to choose which character to proceed with, changing what's asked of you depending on your choice. It's awesome, and made the more homogeneous space between these moments a real bummer.
Okay.
Combat overall is more challenging and thoughtful than in the past. Enemies, especially in groups, are more aggressive and tend to have solid defenses, both in that they block a lot, and also in that many of them are armor, essentially giving them another life bar. Effectively taking them down means having a solid defense of your own, dodging and deflecting their blows to make them vulnerable, and taking advantage before they recover.
Oh.
Though the camera can really struggle to keep all of the action in frame.
Como que la cámara struggling. Tú no puedes llamarlo un juego AAA cuando tú sabes.
Straightforward combat
No está
encounters
ya a la
really
altura de
seen
eso.
when playing as Yasuke, whose suite of weapons are all perfect for decimating enemies. Even outside of his toys, he's a juggernaut of a man, being able to literally run through walls and shake the earth with his blows.
Cuando llega Crimson Desert.
Naoe is very fragile by comparison, and while capable of doing lots of damage when enemies are vulnerable, she gets overwhelmed easily by mobs, especially well-armored bruisers. On the flip side, Naoe is a menace when striking from the shadows or catching enemies unaware. There are some new features, like being able to crawl and dodge while prone, as well as some returning ones, like her eagle sense and the long-missing double assassination, all of which add up to make Naoe one of the most robust assassins in the series. Enhancing your combat abilities is mercifully less tedious than Valhalla's skill constellation. Naoe and Yasuke have skill trees focused on their weapons and specialities, with every node feeling far more impactful than simple passive damage bonuses, which still exists, but in small amounts. Gaining new abilities is obviously the most impactful, but some of the real hidden gems add new functionality to weapons, like being able to turn certain attacks with Naoe's chain sickle into grapples that let you pull enemies into obstacles or off of cliffs.
Okay.
Speaking of excess, Shadows takes a big step backwards from the work done around your inventory in Valhalla or Mirage. There are far too many pieces of randomized, color-tiered gear to pick up from fallen foes or earn as forgettable quest rewards that had no chance of making it into my rotation. Some might do as last-minute stopgaps to...
Para mí, mientras más loot, mejor. Si puedo cambiar los colores, mejor. Si puedo customizar todo, hasta las pantallas que usa, mejor. ¿Por qué no?
Keep your stats in line with the bad guys. But only until you find that next piece of legendary gear or earn enough resources to level up a piece you already like. The skills in legendary gear, like this armor that has a chance to negate range attacks entirely, are impactful in a way that the generic buffs that you get from the lower tiers of gear never even come close to.
Hay un corillo de gente bien molesta contigo. Vamos a ver el veredicto de esto.
Assassin's Creed Shadows takes a flashing blade to the series' established norms, trimming them to a more precise form in lieu of chopping them down outright. Combat is aggressive and requires more intentional parrying and skill management than in the past. And exploring the gorgeous provinces of Sengoku period Japan is encouraged thanks to a revamped map that de-emphasizes collecting icons and checking off lists. Naoe and Yasuke are well-realized and memorable protagonists, even though most of the story they drive follows pretty predictable paths. Both have unique playstyles that bolster each other's weaknesses, but they are ultimately imbalanced by the fact that you can make use of the stealth and exploration skills of the master shinobi far more than the superhuman strength of the samurai. This isn't the Assassin's Creed that will change the minds of folks who have never connected with the series before. But for those of us with lots of hours logged into the Animus, the sum of Shadow's parts provide a refreshing realignment that you should not skip.
Ok. Este es el veredicto. Si tú me preguntas, a mí, sin haberlo jugado, después de haber escuchado un poquito de Asmo, un poquito de... ¿Cómo se llama el otro? Penguin. ¿Quién más estaba escuchando? Que by the way se tiró de una parte de arriba del barco y se mató y dijo, mira, yo no voy a jugar esto más nada. La real, para mí Assassin's Creed es un 6 o un 7, o sea, no es un mal juego. Pero ¿cuándo yo lo voy a jugar? Sencillo. Yo voy a jugar cuando lo pongan a 20 pesos. O cuando lo pongan en el Game Pass. Porque para mí es inconcebible que ni siquiera a ese bebo le dio Star ahí y enseñó el shop, los microtransactions, todo el bullshit que Ubisoft le mete a este juego. Ustedes han jugado Elden Ring. Ustedes han tenido la oportunidad de jugar Elden Ring en algún momento. Ghost of Tsushima, aquellos que lo quieren comparar con Ghost. Es más, vamos a Ghost. En Ghost todo era in-game. ¿Sabe? Una experiencia única, de principio a fin. Incluso hicieron un multiplayer en Ghost gratis. Así como lo escuchan. Y todo era in-game. No había que comprar absolutamente nada. O sea, este juego, después de pagar $70, vayan y chequen. ¿Sabe? Ahí se los voy a dejar todo. Es un buen juego, sí. Un buen open world. Una buena experiencia. Pero para mí, no es el valor. Ubisoft, lamentablemente, no es lo que debió haber sido. Esta compañía se corrompió con todas las microtransacciones, al igual que Call of Duty. No sé. Mi pensar. Nada, corillo. Vamos a ir viendo un par de cosas. No olvides que me pueden seguir en donde Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, X, para que vacilen conmigo. Vean todo lo que estamos haciendo. Estoy jugando Star Wars otra vez. Tengo la necesidad de un juego de Star Wars. Extraño jugar un juego de Star Wars cuando alguien se va a dignar en hacer un KOTOR. Un Knights of the Old Republic Flow Elden Ring que podamos customizar, crear un personaje, corromperlo. ¿Cuándo? Por favor.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.